Who don't know me, Greg Lightfoot, previous elder, part of the equipping team. The announcement last week was sent out that the elders have encouraged us and are feeling led for us to join City Life. And we asked for as many people as possible to send in questions. What I tried to do is be able to gather all those together, and it was awesome. We had a great response. There were about 12 different people who sent in questions, a total of 72 questions, but we were able to boil those down to about 12 really important ones, and then there's some that we were able to pull together as kind of more specifics that may need to be answered later because they more relate to city life and how they run things. Most of the information has already been answered in the FAQ. The purpose of today is really to give the elders an opportunity to share with you how we got to where we are now, their hearts behind the process. I'm going to ask the questions, and we're going to go through those based on all the ones that were provided, and we'll give the elders a chance to share. At the end of that, if there's still any points of clarification or questions that you have, then the mics are here for you to ask those. I'd like to start in prayer. Father, you are an awesome God. As the word was shared today and as Marcy shared, it is all about you. As I was preparing my questions, I shoved them into a journal that I had on my desk, and there were some words in here that just said, we would rather put up with anything than put an obstacle in the way of the good news about Christ. Lord, let nothing said here today put an obstacle between anyone and the good news about you. We are here to serve you. Just give us that opportunity. And this is our family. We love each other. And just thank you for joining us here this morning. Bless our time together, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. Okay, so there's three main sections of questions. There was really, how we got here, kind of the transition, and then what's city life going to be like? How are we going to interact there? The main thing we want to cover today and make sure we cover today is how did we get here? To this decision, what the hearts of the elders, let them share that. And get into the transition. If we don't have time to get into what the next steps are, most of that is answered in the FAQ, and there will be opportunities to ask more questions. So just first off, and feel free, if it's just one of you guys wants to answer or everyone has a perspective, that we want that. So there were several questions that were focused on just the sequence. So what happened from mid-November when the announcement was made to move forward with a courtship and looking into the opportunity of merging with City Life until January when the decision was communicated to join with them. And then kind of along with it, why do the elders feel this is the right thing for our body?
I assume this is, on. I think that question, I hope we're up to speed on everything that went ahead even before November. So this is something that's about a year old to the Elder Board. And this started with some discussions of, or I think the ideas came about from a contingency plan for the church. About a year ago, we began to notice that things were not going well from potentially resource standpoint, both financially and people. And so there was a team brought together from the Elder Board and the equipping team to come up with some ways that we might be able to do that, or to at least have a plan, right, to move forward. And out of one of those was a potential joining of another church. And that was one of the ideas that came out of that. And in the meantime, I think it's pretty clear in the frequent asked questions document that there were some things that happened where at that time Doug just happened to run into Mike from City Life through some community meetings or meetings that they were in, and some of those discussions began to happen just as they built a friendship with that. And in the meantime, as those contingency plans were sort of thought about a little bit more, and as we continued to watch the trends, and as we buried into the engage and unfold that we really felt and still feel like this church was leading into, we asked the council of elders, so that's for the former elders, we called them in and said, hey, here's where we're at, this is what we're thinking, pray for us, give us some input, and so forth. As we had that meeting, then what happened as we continued down this path, and we were, as this thing in my heart, right? So I'm trying to share my heart. It was a slow cooker, if you will. Shelley's got something on the slow cooker today. I smelt it this morning. It was something that really was in my mind, and I heard about it, right, starting last year. And as things were moving forward, and as we were looking into coming forward with 2017, so as we still felt as the board that Engage and Unfold was something that the Lord has continued to lay on our hearts, and we had put things in place, the one thing, and I think we all feel that is still something that is there, that some of the things that were coming of that were not necessarily, we were not seeing the resources coming along with that vision. And so as this, if you will, the slow cooker kept coming on in my heart, and when I learned more about City Life and where their heart is, and that involved prayer meeting with their leaders. We also had dinner with them, and just the time to understand their leaders. And for me, they average about one decision for Christ every week from a non-believing standpoint. And that really opened my eyes, is that they're seeing some fruit from their engagement activities, and that's an area we struggle in here. And for me, my standpoint was too, is that the thing I think, as I observe our church, one of the things we're really good at is being a family or enfolding people, right, when we're here. And to me, that's a process where they seem to start to grow together, that we were really good at this. I'm not saying they're bad at that type of thing, but they also are a very young church, 4 years old, I think 5 years as of today. And if we remember when we were 4 years old, and to me, it started to come together. And I'll have to be honest with you guys too, because also coming in on that was our financial monthly statements, where we were seeing a loss, and so we're eating into our money, and then we're getting the reports from the family or from the ministries that we don't have the resources to keep doing the ministries the way we were doing them. And so to me, it sort of was that slow cooker. When we get home today, I think the meat's going to be done, and to me that's how my heart came to this decision, that this is what's best for our church. And I tried to approach it from a shepherd standpoint. I think this is best for us as a body to provide that, a way that we can still work on the things that God's called us to work on, which I believe is engage and unfold, and maybe some new ways as we join with them, and it will help us to, I think, grow in new ways that we've never seen, and new ideas, and yet we bring a lot of experience to the table that I think we can help in this community. So that's my long answer. I'm sorry if it's long, but that's where my heart was and is. I hope that was helpful for people. Okay, you go.
Hey, everybody. For those of you who are sitting out there going, okay, I've seen that guy. Who is that? That's John Kowalczyk. That's my name. I've been serving on the elder board since September. And so, to be honest, I've not been rubbing elbows in the muck with these guys at nearly as long when it comes to this process. To be honest, I come on in September, and these guys, I think, did everything that they could, and I'm doing everything I can to try and play catch up, right? Catch up not just on, okay, do we merge? Catch up not just on that, but, do we sell the building? What does engage and enfold look like, from the elder's standpoint? There's a lot that I'm trying to be able to decipher, right? I think that we as an elder board can recognize some things through this process. And when we say that about this process, I think it's something that we recognize as an issue that Sanctuary Community Church has faced for 16 years. I've been attending this body almost since it began. And I think that it's fair to say that over the years, there's been issues. There's been flaws. Perhaps procedural issues, perhaps communication issues when it comes to ministry, when it comes to elder decisions. But I cannot look back at all over the past 4 or 5 months that I've been on the board, or in my 16 years here at Sanctuary, and go, wow, there are people making decisions with ill intent or with bad hearts. And so I want to be sure that you hear that from us, that we acknowledge, and I think I'm saying this in unity, that we acknowledge that there have been flaws getting us from A to B, or wherever we're at this point, right? And we need to acknowledge that and acknowledge that there are consequences that make things messy. But please do not believe that any one of these guys' hearts up here was about something other than trying to serve the Lord. It might not, and the flock, thank you. That was not our heart, that was not our intent. It may appear sometimes that we might not be lined up with everybody. But that does not mean that we're not trying to serve you and shepherd you and honor the Lord. Because when it comes right down to it, and I don't want to sound like a jerk right now, but I love each and every one of you. And for those of you who've had relationship with me, I think you know my heart. And I don't say this lightly, but I don't have to answer to you when it's all said and done. And I think you recognize that. When I die, I will stand in judgment. And as an elder, as a youth group leader, as someone who's come up here and preached the word to this body and given a word that I hope has always come from the Lord, that I believe has always come from the Lord, mistakes have been made by me. But when I go before the Lord, I will own up to those mistakes. But I also have to recognize that owning up for mistakes is also slightly different, maybe vastly different, than owning up for intent. And so I know that there are hurt hearts out there. I know that there are people, even my brother Tim, who's asking that one word question over and over again. Why? I'm not sure if there's a clear answer, but I do know that in my life, I have never heard God utter the word oops. But it doesn't make it less messy. It doesn't necessarily heal all the hurts along the way. And it doesn't correct all the mistakes that have been made. As I kind of finish this up, what I want to say is, we could stand up here, and I say this on behalf of my brothers, and give you a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas. If the process was slightly different, if communication was more clear and more open, or whatever it is we want to say, okay, sure, maybe the decision would look different. But I can't stand before you and before the Lord and say that it would be different. And if I'm saying that it would be different, I think that I might not be able to go to the Lord before that. Please hear me on that. That's my heart right now. And I know that there are several of you in this body right now who have been with me kind of elbow to elbow just this week, including each and every one of these guys on this board. You know? I think when it comes right down to it, I do trust these guys. And not just these elders and Doug, but all of the elders who are currently non-serving in this body. I would be pleased and grateful and praising the Lord if I ever had to be in a foxhole knowing if you were by my side. And I think and believe that we can all say that, even if there might be differences of how things should have happened. And so I can't speak for these guys, and I don't know what questions that might also come our way. But there's a part of me right now that is totally at peace about all of this and about what's going to be said up here today. But regardless of what's happened in the past, we should learn from it. And I'm praising God for revealing things, because that's what he does. Amen. He reveals. And the cool part is we have an opportunity as a board and we have an opportunity as a body to learn. That's why things are revealed and move forward. And so we're here. Deal with it is kind of what the Lord's saying, and move forward knowing that you're here and that, yes, you can learn from the past, but it's really tough to change it and fix it. This has not been an easy decision for me. Am I at peace about it? Yes. Did I look through the lenses of engage and enfold in making this decision? In my flawed ways, yes. Did I take into account resources being depleted? One of those resources, of course, that we have to acknowledge that makes it messy is people leaving the family. Resources being depleted. The financial statements are there. Were those taken into account? If I said no, I'd be lying to you. Was that the driving force for us making this decision? I cannot in good faith say yes. I cannot say that there's an easy out. Go to City Life, let's go. That fixes everything. That takes it all away. No, that's not what happened up here. Even if because of things in the process and communication, it felt like that to some of you. Maybe a lot of you, I don't know. But that's not what was our hearts. Okay, how am I doing, guys? You know, have I stepped out of bounds? You know, when John gets talking, he gets talking. So, you know.
Hey, real quick, John, part of the question was what happened between November and January. Can one of you walk us through kind of some of the many meetings you guys had during that time that led up to that final meeting in December where you guys voted?
You're looking for me to answer that, or are you just throwing it to the board? Because if someone else is ready, I might need a moment. I would have to look for them. It would take me a few moments.
I'll do my best without having the things in front of me. You'll have to bear with right our brains. I mean, we've had a lot of documents, we've had a lot of meetings, we've had a lot of things. So if you'll just bear with me on this. So October, we did send out a survey to sort of get a flavor of where everyone was at. Early October, early part of the month. We did have a leadership retreat in earlier October as well, where we discussed 2017, but part of that time, not a whole bunch, but part of that time was the survey results too that we had. We had at that point an elder meeting where we discussed this even further in October. So take that somewhere around the 20th of October, somewhere around that time, where we discussed our status and with the sale of the building and with merging of City Life, and what we needed to do to be able to make a decision. As I recall, that's what that discussion was like. In November, we had a couple meetings with the members where we tried to provide updates and answer questions on that process. We did bring the Council of Elders back in, or invited them back in late October as well to get more feedback. Sorry, I'm retracing that back up in there. And then in November in our elder meeting, we also discussed, and for quite a while, City Life. We had. When did we eat with those guys? When did we have supper with them? Does anybody? So just before Thanksgiving, we had supper with the leadership from City Life and discussed them. Our elder meeting was then more about how we're feeling and joining with them. Is this something that we were progressing with? Where was the elder board in regards to that? In December, at the elder meeting, which was just before Christmas, we at that point took a vote to see if joining with City Life was going to be something that the board felt was. And after a long discussion, a vote occurred. The vote was unanimous on the joining of City Life in, I think, the Tuesday before Christmas. And at that point, we set on that decision. We let the holidays roll through, and then in early January, we met back together as a board. We'd had a couple weeks. We went back through and said, okay, does anybody have, I think the term has been buyer's remorse, if you will, or is anybody not okay with the decision we made at that time? At that time, we still were all in agreement that this was the thing to do. We still had questions, don't get me wrong. There's still some questions that are even outstanding today, but that's sort of where we were then. And then it was the decision to inform the church of that decision to make sure, and that's what happened on the 8th of January. And then obviously this meeting was here for that. Did that help, Greg? Guys, did I miss anything?
I might give just some more kind of like tidbits from the elder meeting in December. Like when we got to the point where we were discussing the merge in that meeting, we did go around the horn. We're trying to find concerns. We're trying to answer questions. We're trying to be elders and talk to each other and discuss this. So various things were coming up. I think many of us up until that point realized that if you just go with the word merge, for example, it's not going to be 50-50 going in. They have more people. They have more staff members, right? They have more things going on there. And so even as far back as months and months before. I mean, I remember having a conversation with Greg, just looking at him in accountability, going, it's not going to be a 50-50 merge regardless. And this was before I was on the board. Like hearing about it, it's like we might have an idea of what a merge looks like, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be exactly what we expect. And so it was at the December meeting that we acknowledged, yes, this will be more along the lines of joining, even if some of our hearts were recognizing that in November. Through this process, and even on that meeting in December, we're doing what we can to look at it when it comes to engage and enfold. And we're seeing that even though they might not use those words, and even, last night we had a meeting, and we're just kind of going through and just making sure that we're in unity before we come in here to today, right? We're praying, oops, we've made mistakes in the past. Let's make sure that today's communication is as close to perfect as we will ever get it in the history of this body, right? Like, that's our heart behind today. If we're going to be on point, it's got to be today, right? And, some of you are like, yeah, it should have been last time too. Like, I get it, right? I know, but I don't want to go there. And so we might not see do something there. We might not see engage and enfold there using those words. But it's there. It's there. It might not be manifesting the way that we see it here at Sanctuary. We acknowledge that. It may be very difficult for some individuals to transition into this new body and figure out where they fit within that culture. We acknowledge that. But this stuff is there. And so when we come to that acknowledgement and agreement, we have to go, all right, so this is a viable option. This is a viable option. And circumstances, whatever, and it's laid before us, ultimately. And so I don't want to call it a surreal moment. And I know that word's been used. Yeah, right. I can't say it for me. What I will tell you is that sitting in that December meeting, after continued discussion, once again, remembering that I'm doing everything I can, once again, from my spot, coming on in September, to get as much information as I can, meeting with Mike, meeting with Eli and Grant and some of the people there, and looking over what their theology is, right? Because, that's a big part of this, too. We have to be in agreement about what they are in agreement about before the Lord. I felt led to say yes, because the ultimate question that was asked that night is what's holding us back from saying yes to a merge? And if that's the question that is asked, right or wrong, I felt like the Lord saying, well, there's nothing that I can come up with at this point that says no to a merge. And taking into account dwindling resources, time is of the essence. Whether that's man's timing or God's timing, may it be man's timing? Sure, I don't know. But at that time, and even now, I believe that God's hand was moving.
In that November meeting that we had at the restaurant, I saw where Mike and Grant's hearts were at.
Just reiterate who they are.
My Pastor Mike and Elder Grant's an elder over at City Life, and they met with us there for dinner in November. And after walking out of the dinner, I saw where their hearts were. And then at the meeting, John was talking about, it hit me, maybe this is the ultimate engage and enfold for us, going in with another church. I remember when I was 5 years old in my life with Christ, and I was put in contact with Dennis Collins, Dirk Titus, among some other people here at church. They brought me up. This feeling keeps going through my head as I've been praying to the Lord. What is our purpose? What's my purpose? What do you want me to do? And this just keeps coming back. might be somebody over there that's a 5-year-old that needs help from a 16-and-a-half-year-old. So that November meeting, I was ready to go. I still am ready to go. I mean, I think we have a lot we can offer, and it's for God's kingdom, even though it might not be for us. So that's where I am. And I do want to apologize to my wife. I know I've been hard to live with. But thank you for your support, and I love you.
In honoring the time, I want to move on to the next question. This is a really important one, and it's a hard one, but how have the elders considered those that remain opposed to this decision or do not feel that this is the path for them or their family? And what can you offer for them?
All right. I'm a little tired and kind of and not really up to speed on everything, but I am up to speed where we're at. My concern is that if you're opposed, why? Because I think sometimes we've been talking about engage and enfold, and what we do on Sunday is important to us as a body, as a family. But I think if we lose our direction, our focus on what we do the rest of the week and what we've been talking about, it's time to implement some of the things we've been trying to communicate, not only just from us as the leaders or trying to cast a vision of the church body, but we've been working on these for almost a year and a half. And what we looked at is we could close the doors and everybody go their own way. And that isn't watching over the flock. You mean it? But for us to be a family, we have to stick together. And so we look for a place where we could stay together. So this adoption I'm more comfortable with. Going to a church that believes some of the same things we've been talking about. It's time to start doing it. They're doing it. I think we got a good handle on the enfold part of it. We're really good at communicating with people, making people feel at home, and they lack that. And those that have attended at church, I think we've also seen that. That's where we can really be integrated and be used to help that church grow. Really, our purpose is not what we do on Sunday morning. It's what we're doing in the community right now as a body. So why not take the strengths that we have and team with another church that is doing some of the things maybe we need to learn how to do better and make a better effect in the community. We went all the way to El Salvador to work with another church, and we were united, and God really worked through us. And I see that happening here. I think we're getting caught up in what are we losing? What am I going to do? Where do I fit in? I think you just need to listen to the Lord and say, I'm ready to go. And show me what you want me to do. And be humble. Have a servant's heart. And God's going to bless you. So if you're struggle with, I don't know where I fit in, open up, pray about it, listen to the Lord. But I really feel like God has given us an opportunity to team with another body that's really on fire for the Lord, that really interested in what is happening in our community. And I think if you will engage in that part of where you fit in instead of I don't feel like I fit in, God is going to open up some opportunities that maybe you don't see right now. I'm not saying maybe this is the right place for everybody, and we would hope that everybody would join us, but we could have just said, let's close the doors. It didn't work. God's got some plan for me. Where do I go? But from our perspective, we were more concerned with, this is our family. What can we do to be a part of another family and to make that marriage work to fulfill both sides? Many times when you met your spouse, or when you get with some friends, or you make a connection with some people, there are differences. But once you realize, as what has been shared in Scripture, that if we find that common ground of love, God's going to use it. God's going to use us. I believe it. And I think that's what we've been trying to communicate, is that we feel like the Lord's been leading this way. Maybe logistically we didn't do all the things right, but in my heart, I know there's some things that we need to get answered for church structure, financial things. But I think the money, to me, means God's closing a door to open something else up to us. So I don't think, for me, the financial was the driving force. It was time for us to grow up and to experience something else.